Good afternoon. Welcome back to South Africa Tonight on eNCA. Birmingham in 2022 has unveiled the biggest ever sports program in Commonwealth Games history with 286 sessions across 11 days of live sport that will celebrate the Commonwealth. Well, the prestigious event will be held from the 28th of July to the 8th of August. Most supporters of the Games are also anticipating a new generation of global sports in Birmingham, and that includes road racing, cycling, judo, triathlon, table tennis and wrestling, of course. SASCOC confirmed today it's all system go as it anticipates another major sporting year. Let's bring in eNCA's sports reporter Hloni Mtimkulu, who has more details concerning that. Good afternoon, Hloni. It's another massive sporting year following the Tokyo Olympics last year. As a reference point, what is SASCOC's impression of the team they will send to Birmingham?
Good afternoon, Arthur. So as you mentioned, the Tokyo Olympic Games, and of course we had the Tokyo Paralympic Games as well. And we know that following on from those games, there was a lot of disappointment, especially about how the Olympic team did with just those two medals from Tatiana and Bianca. But now with the planning going ahead to the Commonwealth Games, with just about 4.5 months to go to those games, they are still in the very early stages of preparing for that. But at the moment, they're kind of looking at a projected team size of 328 athletes. That's a big size. And we remember what happened with the Tokyo Games with the Olympic team, where there was a big team and they only came back with those two medals. But as things stand, about 328 athletes. And of course, with the Commonwealth Games, that would include both the Olympic team as well as the para team as well, because it is a multi-sport and a mixed discipline event. And then in terms of the contingent, the breakdown of the men and the women, for the first time, I know we've always struggled with having women athletes, but they expect that there should be more women athletes, so about 126, I think it is, women athletes compared to 107 men. If everything goes to plan, then there would be more women than men, and that would be a first time, of course, for South Africa in the Games history. So that's kind of how things are looking at the moment for the team, but it is early days. There are still events that are still going to take place. For example, all the national championships will still take place. Think of swimming, that will still take place. You've got the athletics, that will still take place. You've got all the international events that hopefully should be easier for athletes to get to with COVID restrictions not as strict as they were in the build-up to the Tokyo Games. So that should hopefully allow for more athletes to join the Commonwealth Games this year.
Hloni, a massive number you mentioned there, 300 to be specific. I mean, do we have clarity that no lack of funding will diverge the national body's commitment to send the athletes to the Games? That was one of the problems we had in previous Commonwealth Games and Olympic Games major events. So is SASCOC going to approach this differently?
Yeah, so after the Tokyo Games, one of the things that did come up was around funding, and that there just wasn't enough funding for the Games. And of course, in terms of team delivery and team preparation, that then affects how things go. I think if I remember correctly, the budget for the Games was around 13 million this is for Tokyo. And that wasn't enough. And this 13 to 15 million was for both the Paralympic and the Olympic team. And that wouldn't be enough for athletes to prepare, to give enough money for athletes to prepare, and as well as SASCOC itself as the organizing or sending body to prepare. One of the things that came up was around Operation Excellence. We know that for a number of years now, for about 2 or 3 years, there's been some confusion around what is happening with Operation Excellence, that program that funds athletes that are expected to do well at these big games. So we've heard that SASCOC is in talks with a major sponsor to hopefully take up that Operation Excellence responsibility. Another thing, as you talk about the funding, the budget for the Games, I said that Tokyo was around 13 to 15 million. For these Games, the budget is looking at 10.8 million rand. Now, if you consider that there will hopefully be a sponsor for Operation Excellence, and then you look at the NLC funding, the lotto, so they're looking at that. They're looking to confirm funding from the sports department as well. That wasn't confirmed today. And then there should also, or there is rather, funding from the Birmingham, the Commonwealth Games Foundation themselves. Obviously, they give all the national federations that funding. So hopefully that they will get all that money together. But whether that will be enough or not, for team delivery and for performance-wise, that I guess we'll have to see when Birmingham does come around.
Well, Hloni, I can tell you for a fact that 10 million big ones is not going to be able to help us medal from the 127 group that we have. But okay, enough of that. The deadline for qualification also puts pressure on downsizing the final list of athletes heading to the games. What was said regarding that? I mean, you mentioned athletic swimming championships that are still taking place. The 28th of July is just around the corner.
Yeah, so the deadline for qualification is the 29th of June. So athletes have now around 3.5 months to qualify. There will be 3 announcements made around the team and those who have made it, as they did with last year's games, where they staggered the announcements. So the first announcement will be around mid-May, and there will be another one in mid-June, and then the last one will be in the first week of July. But again, because of COVID-19 and how that's sort of affected how sport is done now, the qualifying is going to be interesting. Will athletes be able to get to Europe? Will they be able to get to all the events that they go to? And I think especially for the para-sport movement, because I know that last year, a lot of athletes, I think all the athletes actually couldn't get to international events. They had to do all their qualifying based on local events, and already those were diminished, were decreased, obviously, because of what was happening then. So it's going to be interesting to see how many events that they can get to, and if, they'll be able to sort of max out the events that they have. But again, so the normal stuff like the athletics, like the swimming, like cycling, and a lot of the team events, actually, they did mention that a lot of them have already qualified. A lot of them are the individual events, and again, those would be like the athletics, your swimming. It's going to be interesting how they do that. Hopefully there won't be as restrictive travel arrangements as last year, and then they can kind of get to around the 300 mark, or even as close to that 328 that they've projected as possible. Although I should say, that the 328 is both the staff and the athletes. So we shouldn't confuse that. I just want to get to the athletes themselves. There's 233 athletes, and then 95 is the team management. So 233. Let's go with that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hloni. We have run out of time. Thank you for that insight building up to the Commonwealth Games that are taking place this July in Birmingham. Our eNCA sports reporter Hloni Mtimkulu just given us an update on what SASCOC expects, of course, ahead of the major sporting event taking place this July. That's all.